Okay, I'm on. I mean, this is Smooth Miss Uncut, and this is another video, another not a segment of my video, but showing how many views I'm actually at now because unfair competition is at play right about now. And I'm gonna let this rock out again for like another 10 to 15 minutes. I'm on YouTube at Miss Uncut, and people are just being told not to actually watch my videos and shit like that. And I was pretty much forced into a position that I never wanted to be in, and that's being Nicki Minaj's impersonator, blah blah blah, all this other shit. So I had to change my look and all this other shit till all of this shit blow over until she actually leave me the fuck alone. So I'm supposed to be her slave or some shit like that or what have you. And I never agreed to it. So I figured maybe she needs to go find somebody else that actually wants to do it. And she has pretty much a gag order, like a gag rule order all over the city. So that's the reason why she actually called her album Gag City and things like that nature. So if you know, you know. If you don't know, in the House of Representatives and things like that nature, they have a gag rule, whatever. And I guess she's supposed to be like some rich, whatever, I don't know, music artist or whatever. I don't know. I don't listen to her music or whatever, but there are certain things. And then people would ask me like, yo, are you Nicki Minaj or things like that or what have you? And I was just like, no. And I don't support her movement. And I guess she has like a movement where she enslaved people and she's a slave master or something like that or what have you. And she's not in touch with the people, and she's supposed to be from the hood or whatever. So I don't know who she is. I guess she's like Trini or some shit like that or what have you. I don't particularly listen to her music because it's just not my taste in music or whatever. And I guess she's supposed to be like this like mega pop star or something like that. I don't know if she does rap or whatever, but it's just not my cup of tea or whatever. So I'm going on 2 minutes right about now. My views is going and things like that nature, and in YouTube too at the same time. So I'm letting this shit rock out, and here's my evidence or whatever. So I'm studying.
That non-voters could express their views. Welcome to 60 Second Civics. The day. Welcome to 60 Second Civics, the daily podcast of the Center for Civic Education. I'm Mark Gage. From the beginning, Americans have felt free to ask the government for action on issues that were important to them. In the 1790s, one task that faced the first Congress was acting on hundreds of petitions for pensions or back pay promised to the widows and orphans of soldiers in the Revolutionary War. In the 1830s, Congress received numerous petitions urging that slavery be abolished in the District of Columbia. The feeling against abolitionists was so strong that in 1836, the House of Representatives, but not the Senate, passed a gag rule, which is a rule prohibiting debate on certain topics to prevent petitions against slavery. This rule not only prevented any discussion of ending slavery in the House of Representatives, it also limited an important way that non-voters could express their views on the issue. The use of the right to petition was an important way for women, African Americans, and others who were denied the right to vote to communicate with public officials. The gag rule was finally repealed in 1844, thanks to the leadership of former President John Quincy Adams, a member of Congress at that time. That's all for today's podcast, 60 Second Civics. Civic engagement only takes a minute.
Hello, I'm Patrick Stewart. Did you know that right now over 70...
Welcome everyone to Have History Will Travel. I am your host, the Wilder Historian, and although the title and thumbnail of this video may seem suggestive, this is an important historical topic to discuss in United States political history. For nearly 10 years, the United States Congress imposed a rule within its chambers that it would not even discuss slavery petitions. This would be called the gag rule, and its repeal signaled a change in the political landscape. By the 1830s, a noticeable group, abolitionists, had emerged in American society. They were not a majority of Americans, nor a majority of Northerners, but they were causing a stir all over northern states. Many Northerners could be called anti-slavery, meaning that they did not favor the institution themselves, but would not seek to restrict the ability of someone else to own another human being. Additionally, as long as it did not come into their state, they were fine with slavery where it existed. However, abolitionists were determined to distribute their literature and wanted to inject their views into the very society in which they sought to change, the South. Abolitionist Lewis Tappan, along with Northern abolitionist societies, printed pamphlets, newspapers, and other pieces of literature to distribute through the South and put them on a steamship carrying mail from New York to Charleston, South Carolina, called the Columbia. The Columbia arrived in the southern port city on July 29, 1835. Charlestonians heard rumors of abolitionist material being aboard the ship, and when the mail was brought to the post office, they broke in through a window and began throwing out bags of mail through it. The next night, 3,000 Charlestonians would fuel a big bonfire by going through the mailbags and inspecting its contents, throwing abolitionist material or anything they considered harmful to slavery into the flames. The Postmaster General wrote to the Charleston postmaster that, "We owe an obligation to the laws, but we owe a higher one to the communities in which we live," which signaled to Southerners that censoring the mail might be necessary to protect the institution of slavery, as well as white society who may be attacked by slave uprisings due to the abolitionist material. By December, mostly New Englanders had sent in numerous petitions attacking slavery and specifically asking Congress to abolish slavery in Washington, D.C. Henry Pinckney, a Democrat from South Carolina, formed a committee to address the petition issue. The committee was instructed to offer reasons why Congress could not regulate slavery in the states, and should not regulate it in D.C. This committee would institute the first gag rule, which resolved that all petitions, memorials, resolutions, propositions, or papers relating in any way or to any extent whatever to the subject of slavery or the abolition of slavery shall, without being either printed or referred, be laid upon the table, and that no further action whatever shall be had thereon. This Pinckney gag resolution passed 117 to 68. With this one rule, Southerners and their Northern allies had silenced a minority group of Americans by not allowing Congress to hear petitions brought forward if it dealt with slavery. Oddly, it grew criticisms from both extremes of the debate. Abolitionist congressmen saw it as stifling their and others' constituency, but some extreme pro-slavery advocates saw tabling all anti-slavery petitions as implicitly saying that the federal government did have the ability to interfere with slavery, but this was a way of postponing it. They wanted the committee to come out and explicitly say that the federal government could not regulate the institution of slavery or where it existed. Not only did the gag rule silence abolitionists, it violated the First Amendment, which gives Americans the right to petition the government. No one was more outspoken about this very fact than the former President of the United States and now Congressman, John Quincy Adams. The following is a snippet from one of Adams' speech against the gag rule. I return then to my first position, that there are two classes of powers vested by the Constitution of the United States in their Congress and executive government. The powers to be exercised in time of peace and powers incidental to war. That the powers of peace are limited by provisions within the body of the Constitution itself, but that the powers of war are limited and regulated only by the laws and usages of nations. There are indeed powers of peace conferred upon Congress, which also came within the scope and jurisdiction of the laws of nations, such as the negotiation of treaties of amity and commerce, the interchange of public ministers and consuls, and all the personal and social intercourse between the individual inhabitants of the United States and foreign nations and Indian tribes, which require the interposition of any law. But the powers of war are all regulated by the laws of nations and are subject to no other limitation. It is by this power that I am justified in voting the money of my constituents for the immediate relief of their fellow citizens, suffering with extreme necessity, even for subsistence, by the direct consequence of an Indian war. Upon the same principle, your consuls in foreign ports are authorized to provide for the subsistence of seamen in distress, and even for their passage to their own country. And it was upon that same principle that I voted against the resolution reported by the Slavery Committee, that Congress possessed no constitutional authority to interfere in any way with the institution of slavery in any of the states of this Confederacy, to which resolution most of those with whom I usually concur, and even my own colleagues in this House, gave their assent. I do not admit that there is, even among the powers of Congress, such authority, but in war, there are many ways by which Congress not only have the authority, but are bound to interfere with the institution of slavery in the states. The existing law prohibiting the importation of slaves into the United States from foreign countries is itself an interference with the institution of slavery in the states. It was so considered by the founders of the Constitution of the United States, in which it was stipulated that Congress should not interfere in that way with the institution prior to the year 1808. By the Treaty of Peace, Great Britain stipulated to evacuate all the forts and places in the United States without carrying away any slaves. If the government of the United States had no authority to interfere in any way with the institution of slavery in the United States, they would not have had that authority to require this stipulation. It is well known that this engagement was not fulfilled by the British naval and military commanders, that on the contrary they did carry away all the slaves whom they had induced to join them, and that the British government inflexibly refused to restore any of them to their masters, that a claim of indemnity was consequently instituted in behalf of the owners of the slaves, and was successfully maintained. All that series of transactions was an interference by Congress with the institution of slavery in the states in one way, in the way of protection and support. It was by the institution of slavery alone that the restitution of slaves enticed by proclamations into British service could be claimed as property. But for the institution of slavery, the British commanders could neither have allured them to their standard nor restored them otherwise than as liberated prisoners of war. But for the institution of slavery, there could have been no stipulation that they should not be carried away as property, nor any claim of indemnity for the violation of that engagement. But the war power of Congress over the institution of slavery in the states is yet far more extensive. Suppose the case of a servile war, complicated as to some extent it is even now with an Indian war. Suppose Congress were called to raise armies, to supply money from the Holy Union, to suppress a servile insurrection. Would they have no authority to interfere with the institution of slavery? The issue of a servile war may be disastrous. By war, the slave may emancipate himself. It may become necessary for the master to recognize his emancipation by a treaty of peace. Can it for an instant be pretended that Congress, in such a contingency, would have no authority to interfere with the institution of slavery in any way in the states? Why, it would be equivalent to saying that Congress have no constitutional authority to make peace. A previous question smothering all discussions upon resolutions reported by a committee affecting the vital principles of the Constitution moved by one of the members who reported the resolutions and sustained by the members of that committee itself is an occurrence which never before happened in the annals of this government. If this be the sample of our future legislation, it is time to awake from the delusion that freedom of speech is among the rights of the members of the minority of this House. Adams would make similar addresses throughout his time as a member of Congress against the gag rule. Over the next few years, Northern Democrats would break away from their Southern compatriots and begin voting along anti-slavery lines, or becoming Whigs, or later Republicans. This would see Southerners lose political power in the federal government, and in December 1844, the gag rule would be repealed, and Congress would be allowed to hear and discuss abolitionist petitions. As Southerners lost political power through the 1850s, they would adopt a way to keep their political power: secession. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope this video brought an aspect of American history to your attention that you may not have been aware of before. The gag rule was contentious and proved to many Northerners that a slave power within Congress was controlling much of the political power in Washington, D.C., and helped lead to the outbreak of the Civil War. It was May 1890 when an old general stepped out of a carriage in front of a gathered crowd in the old capital of the Confederacy, Richmond, Virginia. Initially, he had not been invited. The organizers of the unveiling of Robert E. Lee's equestrian statue did not want this general in attendance, but when some of the general's former artillerymen insisted that he join the group of veterans of America's bloodiest war, the organizers relented. The general climbed the stairs and sat on the stage with other veterans of the Civil War, knowing that through his decisions, especially in the last few decades of his life, he was seen by some as a traitor to the Confederacy. The general was James Longstreet. He was known as Lee's old warhorse and Lee's bulldog during the war, and being commander of the 1st Corps of the Army of Northern Virginia, he should have been a natural choice to join other veterans on the day of the unveiling of Lee's statue. But his story is much more complicated. James Longstreet was born in South Carolina on January 8, 1821, to James and Mary Ann Dent Longstreet. Neither his father nor his mother were from the South Carolina-Georgia border region, where they owned a cotton plantation near the modern-day town of Gainesville. His father James was born in New Jersey. His mother was born in Maryland. His first Longstreet ancestor stepped foot on the North American continent in the Dutch colony of New Netherlands in 1657. His name was Dirk Stoffels Longstreet. The family stayed in that area until William, with the new anglicized last name Longstreet, moved from their family home in New Jersey to
Nah, I was
Augusta,
just saying,
Georgia,
hey, what's
bringing
up?
along the
I
father
really
of the
wasn't
Confederate
speaking on the
general.
video.
William and his wife Hannah settled into life in the South, with William building a steamboat propelled not by a paddle wheel, but by a series of long poles driven by the
All
engine
right, that's
against
a
the
good
river
thing.
bottom.
It's always a good
Because of its
thing.
complexity, he
Okay.
couldn't get
All
financial
right, so
backers, but he
I
remained
ain't
in
trying
the
to
South,
disturb you.
eventually
All right,
purchasing a
so I'll
cotton
hit you later
plantation
then.
in South Carolina, north of Augusta, Georgia. William would pass away in 1814, but his son James would continue the Longstreet tradition of roaming. James would move closer to the Appalachian Mountains and purchase land on which to grow cotton worked by
Pretty
slave
much,
labor.
yeah. All
He would
right,
meet
that's
Mary
cool.
Ann Dent on one of his trips to Augusta. She was a distant cousin to Supreme Court Justice John Marshall. Her parents moved from Maryland to Georgia in 1812. The two married in 1814. From that year until 1820, Mary had given birth to 4 children, 2 of them dying in infancy. After Christmas in 1820, Mary traveled to her mother-in-law's home in South Carolina, where she would give birth to their 5th child, James. Although he was born in South Carolina, James would always consider Georgia his home state. The young man will be nicknamed Pete or Peter by his family, and the
I
name stuck,
appreciate that.
being used by
But I don't
family
want to
throughout
stop
his
you from
life.
doing what you're doing. I know you
By
got to
the age
make
of 9, his
moves.
father wanted James to get an education so that he could get into West Point Military Academy.
All right.
The young James read books about Alexander the Great, Caesar,
Have a
and
good one.
Napoleon,
Happy
filling
holidays.
his head with military glory. To indulge his son's longing for a military career, the elder James sent his son to live with his aunt, uncle, and cousins in Augusta, Georgia, so he could attend the Richmond County Academy. His uncle, Augustus B. Longstreet, also attended the academy, but had been expelled. His uncle was an impressive figure, though. Having been reportedly 17 pounds at birth, he would attend Yale and graduate before attending Judge Tapping Reeves Law School in Litchfield, Connecticut. In 1815, Augustus would return to Augusta and be admitted to the bar. Later, he became a state legislator and a judge on the Supreme.
Oh shit, I went too far. What the fuck is this? Oh, I'm bugging. I'm in it. Okay. So, yeah. My bad. Not right now. Yeah. Alright, so I'm 21. I'm 21 minutes in. So, that's that. Like, alright, so that's pretty much everything put together. Everything put together, it is. That's 40 minutes. I'm glad I got that. So maybe I could take that to the attorneys and shit like that. And that would be a beautiful thing. So, like I said before, I'm Smooth Miss Uncut. I'm not Nicki Minaj's impersonator. Never signed a contract to be a slave. I'm a free agent. A little bit of information from the artist I'm supposed to be a slave for. Impersonator for. I guess she's supposed to be with a label. She's not a free agent. And I guess she's with Young Money or Republic. Like this, I had to do some research or whatever. They say that you have to do research or whatever. She's supposed to be with Republic Records or some shit like that, and not Cash Money, Money Cash, whatever the fuck they call that. I don't know. It's either one. But she's not a free agent. She's signed to a label. So I'm trying to figure out exactly what that got to do with me. Because I'm a free agent and there's no contract that nobody could show me. So technically there is no gag order on me. I'm not exactly sure how that actually works when it comes down to the whole gag order thing, and like you trying to have slave on other people's fans or some shit like that. People like who they like. If they like both people, I do podcasts. I don't do music. I'm a free agent, so I'm not a part of any type of impersonator website to be hired into it. I was never hired to be a impersonator or anything like that. I don't fucking know. What else do I actually say after this shit? Yeah, I guess that's pretty much. I think that's pretty much it. Trying to think right now. Yeah, just trying to make it make sense. Unfortunately, like all my life, I was lied to and shit like that. And it's like, oh, yeah, you're into music. And I'm like, no, I'm not, because I don't have a contract. So I never had a contract within any record label or anything like that. And any impersonators, company or brand, anything like that, nobody actually paid me to. This shit is crazy. Nobody actually paid me to be an impersonator from any label. Nobody actually hired me to be an impersonator from any label. And there are wages that's due because, you know, like my life was ruined because of the thought of. So it's like, well, if I was an impersonator, I would be getting paid. So I was never paid to be an impersonator. So it's just like, yo, it's just like, yeah, no, we're forcibly, we're going to actually do that shit. And it's fucking annoying. It's like, it's not a big deal. Just go get somebody else that's actually willing to do it. But I understand some people don't want to, you know, like they want to be bums. They want to be cheap and they don't want to fucking pay. You know what I'm saying? Like, is that part. So it's like, go get somebody else that's gonna do. You're gonna have to fucking pay them do that shit because I don't want to and I don't have to. I'm a fucking free agent. Some people don't like freedom. That's not my problem. They don't like freedom. They need to go back to where they came from. And I feel like, and I definitely feel like that maybe Nicki Minaj need to go back to her slave country, which is Trinidad. Because that's not really my problem. You know what I'm saying? Like, you want people to do shit like that and then you don't even hire them. You're just saying, yeah, that person actually likes me. That's a problem. Because I don't. So now it's like the whole payola thing. It's like, oh, the payola. Yeah, let's pay everybody to say that we don't like them and shit like that or whatever. And it'd be the obvious things, just like, you know, like if everybody said, if anybody put it to the test and say, yo, like, show your true feelings. But, you know, for some reason, people are scared of Nicki Minaj. I don't know, like, the payola thing. But without the payola, is that part. It's like, you know, like, let's show the real competition. There is no competition when it comes down to that. It's just like, you know, you leave people where they are. It's like, yo, they like you, they like you. If they don't, they don't. I don't care. Just leave my lifestyle alone. Leave my livelihood alone. So now I'm dealing with a Caribbean slave master. Goddamn. Like, I'm like, damn, like, this is where it led to. This is so bullshit. Like, fuck. Like, is it my last name? Like, is it my last name? Like, what is it exactly? It's just like, fuck. It's just like the payola is fucking crazy. So now I'm going into like, I'm gonna let this hit into like 30 minutes. Goddamn. Like, this shit is fucking ridiculous for real. Like, I never seen so much fucking thirst and desperate shit in my whole fucking entire life. Ever in my life. This some new shit for me. Like, and out of everything that was going on in my life too at the same time, it's crazy because me growing up and seeing how females were, they was never thirsty like that, even through payola, to pay somebody, like, to be in that type of position, knowing that they are, you know what I'm saying, like, they say that they're top tier, but they don't act like that. It's just like, you know, I could pay person this, that, like, bribe. Why do you need somebody to bribe so bad when you're already on top? You don't have to show anything more. And that's where Nicki Minaj is supposed to be. She's supposed to be on top, but she's really acting like she's on the bottom. And I'm like, yo, you already did what you needed to do, as it say, in your career. Or anybody that, you know what I'm saying, during her team, and they're like, yo, well, like, this is what has to be done. It's like, no, it don't, because she, as y'all claim, she had so many years within it, right? I don't dance, and I should say, I dance, but at the same time, I haven't danced in a long time. I never sung. I'm not a part of a label. I could do whatever the fuck. Like, I'm not obligated. I don't rap. I don't do none of that shit. So it's just like, yo, what the fuck is the big deal? Just find somebody else. For a person to be up here, it's like, to actually come down to a level and you put yourself down to that level with all of that fucking money, is just like, why? That's how slave masters act. It's just like, no, you're mine. Like, no, I'm not yours. I don't want to be yours. So, is that. All right, so I'm on 30 minutes finally. Like, in my lifetime, I could finally say it's just like, yo, I finally found out what it actually was that I was supposed to accomplish on this fucking planet. I've never seen females be so fucking desperate over men, over social media, meaning lives and shit like that. This shit is pathetic. This shit gotta get way better. It's like, what the fuck? And like, females don't even have to act that way. But even though there are like sociopaths, serial killers and shit like that, and be like, yeah, no, you have to like me and da 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 da. It's like, why? It's like, you know, like people can't handle rejection. And this is the sad part. It's just like, yo, this shit is wild. Bug the fuck out for real. Like, people are really in their head too much. The way they think is somebody actually have to like them. I just want my life back. Like I said before, there's nothing for me to actually be jealous of. I just want my life back. She lived her life. She says she does music. She says she writes her own songs. She says she doesn't have ghostwriters. And she, you know, obviously, like I said, I have to do my research, keep up with this shit every day, unfortunately for me, because it's happening to me. If it wasn't happening to me, then I don't have to do this bullshit and I don't have to be on my fucking live. This shit is annoying as fuck. So now it's like I'm going into 31 minutes and 50 seconds and shit like that. Damn, I could be doing way things better right now. So it's just that factor. And it's just like, damn. I look up to people who actually, they're like fucking philanthropists and things like that nature. And I'm just like, do I have to look up to someone that don't do shit? Like, I've been waiting for my moment for so fucking long. And it's crazy. So, I'm off of this. Like I said, Miss Uncut, Melissa Cromwell, by the way, on YouTube. Like, smooth. Miss Uncut, MMC. Like, being a human, this shit is ass. Like, and people are jealous over people just because of the fact of the views that they actually have. And when you're big like that, I'm not understanding. How are you that big and you're that jealous that every female that comes towards music, I see who ruined rap? Let me just say that. When you see people ruin, like, it's like no other female could come in. It's just like, can y'all just sit up there and y'all, you know what I'm saying? Like, understand you're going to have bloggers, fans fuck it up for everybody. Can y'all just make an album and can y'all make songs and stop trying to deplete somebody else's shit? If it's good, it's good. If it's not, it's not. It's like, damn. If people don't want to be a part of that shit, stay out of these people's lives. And I'm talking about myself. Stay out of my life. I'm not even in the industry. But all of a sudden it becomes my fault that everything happened. I'm not taking responsibility for nobody else's shit. I'm not fucking doing that. So now I guess everybody's going to take accountability for what the fuck they do. It's not my problem. Now I guess, you know, like, people got to grow the balls up and say, yo, you know, this is how it pretty much has to happen. I'm not here for it. I'm not here for that. I'm here to live my own life and seek my own destinies and things like that. And it's just like, yo, like, do I actually have to go into something that I never wanted to go in the first place? It wasn't a lifelong dream. Fuck. Like, I guess it happened by accident. And here I am. So any type of video that I do now, regardless of the fact if it's staying on views on a 0 and shit like that, it's going to be looked at and it's going to be like, oh yeah, no, we can steal that from her and we're not going to give her any type of views or anything like that or what have you, because it always happened. Damn, I got how many years in this shit? Oh yeah, point proven. That's right, because as soon as I put that video out yesterday about, yeah, like if me and Nicki Minaj do a fucking blood test, you would know that she had my fucking DNA. So now I don't have any views. Point proven. Have a good night. Like, much obliged.